So I kind of want to show you what these this is actually your blade side adapter that I took out. So you have a new blade side adapter on your saber. And the reason that I replaced yours is when I took it off, I noticed that this positive pad was totally ripped off, which is fine because there's another one over here. But I went ahead and replaced it anyway because that positive pad, the way it was ripped off, which might have come from, you know, taking the blade apart, but whatever. I could have just used this other positive, but I went ahead and replaced this anyway. But the one thing that I saw that concerned me on yours is, you can see where the pins have made the electrical contact. So the angry pixies have been flowing through these, and it's created some indentions. And what I think may have happened when you were jamming the blade in is those, you know, pins might have grabbed those indentions and may have got bent over that way. I'm still not sure. But these pins are very fragile. They're very tiny. You can see how tiny they are compared to my finger. And what happens when you're putting the blade in is these pins touch the target, and you can see them touching the target in there, and then they compress so they maintain contact on each of these target points. So the outer ring of the target is positive, the inner ring is negative, and the very center is data for the blade. Data is very important for the blade. Anything that gets screwed up in data, the blade's not going to work properly. The blade can have, you know, the full voltage of the battery, but if data is messed up, then the blade's not going to work. So usually if you have a blade issue, it's somewhere in the data line. But you can see how fragile these connectors are. So when you're putting the blade into the saber, what's happening is those springs inside those pins are compressing. Now you don't want them to over compress, but you also don't want this blade to be loose. And you said even with the MPP, sometimes when you're swinging it around that it'll glitch or it'll lock up. My guess is that you don't have those springs, you know, slightly compressed, and then once you hold that compression on the springs by holding, you know, when you insert the blade in here, you're going to feel those springs on the NeoPixel adapter. And when you feel those springs, then you want to press in, and then you want to tighten this blade retention screw while you're holding that tension on those springs. And if you don't, then the blade's not making good contact, and then you risk bending those while you're wielding around the saber. So that's the quick lesson about these NeoPixel adapters is, number one, yes, you have to put the blade in solid enough so that these things actually compress against the target so that they're making good full contact. And then you have to tighten the blade retention screw, and this is either on your MPP or the saber. The blade retention screw must be tightened to make sure that the blade maintains contact here. If the blade loses contact with, you know, just as simple as that, or pulls away where it's just that close, the blade is not going to work. Those springs have to be making contact, and they have to be held in compression. And they're held in compression by the blade retention screw here. Nothing's changed there. To take out the blade adapter, you use the center one. That takes out your 7/8 adapter out of there. So that's still the same as the previous video. What is slightly different from your other video, because that fried your Proffie. So let me show you. I don't think that's your Proffie. Yeah. So this was your Proffie, and basically what happened is it arced between this leg and this leg, the battery negative, and your FETs arced. And then there was also a melt on one of the internal traces on the board, and that caused corruption in data line 1 right here. So data line 1 was continuous with negative and the FET negative. That's why the blade was acting so screwy. So since the Proffie board is hosed, that's total loss. I still have some Teensy Sabers, so I installed Teensy Saber. It's still basically the same. You have your SD card access there, USB access here. To get the shroud back around the hilt, you just hold it down like this, and the TH shroud slides down. You replace the battery the same way, and there's your battery, which is, you know, still the same battery. And you just slide the TH shroud right over that material and your Teensy Saber V3. The TH shroud keeps the Teensy Saber insulated from touching anything in the metal hilt, and it also protects the battery from the same thing. Once that's all back together, you slide your MHS6 back in, and the pommel will drive it home. Pull the kill key.
Initializing. Weapon is armed.
Primary. Button functions are the same as I showed you in the previous video, even though this is, and like I told you on Messenger, Teensy Saber V3 and Proffie are the same exact thing. They both have the same program, the same software and everything. The difference is a Proffie is smaller. This is a Teensy Saber V3. This is a Proffie. So this Teensy Saber V3, which actually some people think the processor on the Teensy Saber is actually better than what's on the Proffie. The Teensy Saber V3 is still a great board. I mean, it can run, you know, the same programs and do everything that a Proffie can. The big difference on Proffie and Teensy Saber is Proffie has more data lines, and Proffie is much more lower profile. But really, you know, once you include the USB and the micro SD, it's really not that much lower profile. That's why I can still fit it in your Saber. But it's basically, the Saber has the same functions, the same presets, same blade styles, and everything as it did before. It just now is running Teensy Saber instead of Proffie. So there is your Saber repaired. I'll be shipping it off to you tomorrow, which is Wednesday. Will be January 2nd, 2019. Take care of it. Mind the lesson here about the pins. Make sure when you insert the blade that you feel the compression in these pins, and then you want to tighten the blade while they're still under compression. And then when you remove the compression, when you loosen your blade retention screw, you want to pull the blade straight out. Don't twist the blade as it's coming out. You want to take it straight out. Twisting the blade could cause these pins to bend. That is the same on your MPP as it is on this Saber. Make sure when you put the blade in your MPP that you compress the blade against those pins, and then tighten your blade retention screw while you're holding compression on those pins. My guess is the glitching you're seeing is because you don't have the blade fully inserted on the MPP. So that is the instructions for your Saber, and hopefully the repair works out for you.